Yo, what is going on, guys? It is TechT here. So, if you hear the word Windows 11, the first thing comes to your mind is the bloody requirements. But here comes the twist. We're going to be installing Windows 11 on unsupported hardware. And in addition to that, we're going to be taking a look at what is TPM, what is secure boot, and what is DISM. So, let's get started. So first off, let's take a look at what is TPM. So TPM is a chip which can encrypt and decrypt keys like passwords and all that. The first version of TPM was introduced back in 2009. Now the latest version of TPM is TPM 2.0, which was introduced back in 2014. So now let's take a look at the types of TPM and what could you do to install TPM on an older machine. First, types of TPM. So there are two types of TPM. And number one is FTPM. So basically, FTPM stands for Firmware Trusted Platform Module. These might not have a dedicated physical TPM chip. Instead, they will include a firmware in a part of a CPU which looks and acts like a TPM, but still not being a dedicated physical chip. And all the processors, even AMD's, launched after or in 2017 most likely has that firmware. Number 2, DTPM. So basically, DTPM is known as Discrete Trusted Platform Module, and this is a dedicated physical chip that is built into your motherboard. So now let's take a look at how to get TPM on an older machine. Well, you could buy a separate TPM chip and install it onto the TPM slot on your motherboard, if yours luckily has one. On laptops, you could install a TPM chip or even upgrade the processor, so I'm sorry, older laptop users. And even if you want to buy a TPM chip and install it onto your motherboard, it's really out of stock. So now that we know all about TPM, let's take a look at secure boot, which is also one of the bloody requirements of Windows 11. So basically, if you want to know what is secure boot, we're gonna have to talk a little bit about UEFI and BIOS. So basically, BIOS, or Basic Input Output System, was introduced to reduce the stress of changing boot settings. Because every time you want to change a boot setting, you're gonna have to open up the whole computer physically and replace certain chips and knobs every time you want to change something. And while BIOS was introduced, it made it easy to make changes to the settings by registering certain hotkeys to get into the BIOS settings and change every setting with your keyboard. But however, it stuck with MBR, or Master Boot Record type encoded disks. And with MBR, you couldn't make partitions over 2 terabytes. And that is where UEFI, or Unified Extensible Firmware Interface, loyally comes in. And this supports GPT, or Globally Unique Identifier Partition Table. And with GPT, we could create partitions of large spaces. UEFI could boot using it. We're talking about millions of petabytes here. And UEFI also supports secure boot, which is one of the bloody requirements of Windows 11. So secure boot works like a gate, detecting the tampering with bootloaders and unidentified ROMs by their digital signatures. And if an OS couldn't boot with secure boot enabled, it means there is either no digital signature or its digital signature is corrupt. Oh, and by the way, if you want a whole explanation of BIOS and UEFI, smash a comment down below. So now that we know all about the bloody requirements of Windows 11, it's time we take a look at nasty workarounds to skip these requirements. And number 1 is registry hacks. So basically, for this, you need a Windows 11 ISO. For that, click the link in the description. Find the ISO section. Select your desired version and hit download. And now you should have a Windows 11 ISO. Once you have the ISO file in your hand, it's time to flash that image onto a USB drive. For that, you need to download Rufus. So Rufus is a free and open source tool to flash ISO images onto a USB flash drive. So to download this tool, click the link in the description and select your desired version. And you should be able to download the exe file. Now grab a 8GB USB flash drive and plug it into the computer that you just downloaded Rufus on. Now launch Rufus and select the Windows 11 ISO image that you just downloaded. Hit start and it will tell you that you will lose your data. And of course, you will lose your data on the USB flash drive. So you may take a backup. Once you're done, hit start. And after the process has done, unplug the USB flash drive and plug it onto the computer that you want to install Windows 11 on. And after that, turn on the computer and press the boot menu hotkey. for your particular motherboard. And if you don't know your particular hotkey for your motherboard, make a Google search and you'll know. Mine was F12. Once you're there, use the arrow keys on the keyboard to highlight and select the boot medium. Once you're done, press the enter key on the keyboard. And you should come to a pretty familiar looking screen. But what is not familiar though is this step. You just want to press Shift F10 and you should see a CMD window pop up. And now type in Regedit to open up the registry editor. Navigate to this path. Oh, and then I forgot to mention the path is in the description too. Now here, create a key called lab config. And also double check that you spelled it right, because if you didn't, it will not work. Once you're done, go to the new key that you just created, right click on the blank screen and hold on key. And here we want to create 2 values or 3 values if required. And number 1 is bypass TPM check to, as the name suggests, bypass the TPM check. And number 2, bypass secure boot check to bypass the secure boot check. Now set all the values to 1 by 1. And again, make sure to spell it correctly or else it will not work. You should be able to install Windows 11 just fine. But if you don't have 4 GB of RAM, you have to create another value called bypass RAM check to bypass the RAM check. Now again, double click all the values one by one and type 1 in the key value string. And make sure to spell it right or else again it will not work. And now you should be able to install Windows 11 just as if nothing happened. But it's Microsoft, and you know about Microsoft, don't you? They might disable this feature. But still, we have 2 more ways. And number 2 is replacing the AppRaiseres.dll file. Now basically, there is a file located in the sources folder in every single Windows ISO, and that is AppRaiseres.dll. So basically, this file is to check the requirements like the system requirements or even the product key. So just because Windows 10's requirements are lower than Windows 11, you could replace the AppRaiseres.dll file of Windows 11's with Windows 10. To do this, get your Windows 10 ISO. To do this, to download the Windows 10 ISO image, click the link in the description and you should be prompted with this screen. Now here, choose your desired version and your architecture. And you should be having a Windows 10 ISO. Now double click it and the ISO image should be mounted. And once it's done, grab your Windows 11 USB and locate the AppRaiseres.dll file in both of the ISOs, which will be located in the sources folder. Copy the Windows 10's AppRaiseres.dll file to Windows 11's sources folder and click replace the files in destination. Again, I booted the installation medium, but this unfortunately didn't work for me because again, it's Microsoft and we couldn't know that they could change it or not. But I mean, the possibilities are no, but if they change so, we're screwed. Here comes the final and awesome method, replacing the install.wim file. For this, you need a Windows 11 ISO just like before. You need a Windows 10 USB. And also, by the way, it's all the same steps for creating a Windows 10 USB and a Windows 11 USB, except the ISOs. Use the Windows 10 ISO that we downloaded earlier instead of the Windows 11's ISO. Now locate the install.wim files on both Windows 11's ISO file and Windows 10's USB. Copy the Windows 11's install.wim file onto Windows 10 sources folder. Hit replace the files in destination. And it should work like a charm. But wait, the real question is, why does this even work? Well, it seems like Windows uses a tool called DISM, or Deployment Image Servicing and Management Tool. And it's a command line which decrypts the .est or .wim files. And also, if you don't know, .est or .wim are extremely powerful encryption formats. They're as powerful to encrypt 15 GB worth of files into a single gigabyte. And of course, this is not a everyday encryption format that you could use for your normal files. It also considers DISM as a 7-zip dedicated to .est or .wim files. One fun fact, by the way, did you know that you could even view and extract .est or .wim files using 7-zip? Well, coming back to the topic, DISM decrypts those large images, copies it onto your hard drive without any checks. So the thing is, DISM just extracts the contents of the .wim or .est files, and replacing Windows 10's install.wim file with Windows 11's, it's just going to copy it to the hard disk, just dumpster to dumpster. And due to the access of CMD while you press Shift F10 on your keyboard, you can even apply the image manually by knowing these commands, which I already do. And I think I'll be making a Windows experiment on installing Windows 11 manually. So stay tuned for that by hitting the subscribe button. So alright guys, that's all for today's video. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, hit that like and subscribe buttons for more videos like this. And also smash a comment telling what I should do in my future upcoming videos, and I'll see you guys in the next video.